of Iron. I'm John Anderson. Meet my co-hosts, Nick Best and Akeem Williams. We're going to have some amazing guests on the show. Buckle up tight, because we're going to be talking about the shit you're not supposed to be talking about. We're going to be discussing anything and everything it takes to become a Legend of Iron.
Legends of Iron is brought to you by Muscle Mints. Muscle Mints is the creator of Carnivore Pure Beef Protein Icing. Beef builds muscle, and Carnivore is the world's #1 selling beef protein.
Welcome to another edition of Legends of Iron. I'm John Anderson. With me always my partner in crime, Nick Best and Akeem Williams. We have got a killer show for you today because we have got a really special guest. This dude is one hell of a cool cat. I know him well. He's a very, very accomplished IFBB pro bodybuilder. But keep in mind, he'll be the first to tell you bodybuilding for him is number 2 because being a family man is number 1. So I'm telling you, as good as he is as a pro bodybuilder, I can only imagine how good of a family man he is. Mr. Josh Wade, what is going down, my brother? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I mean, I appreciate seeing you all. I mean, obviously been around you for quite some time. So to be able to get on and, help possibly, contribute to the show here, I'm not that funny of a guy. So, I mean, hopefully I get some content for you. But, hey, anyways, I'm proud to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, brother. We're happy to have you on. Happy to have you on the show, to say the least. So
definitely.
Well, brother, talk us through your when I mean, at the height of your pro bodybuilding career, you were pretty much in the podium nonstop. But let's go back. Talk to us. How'd the whole thing start off? Everybody knows you as the guy that's gracing all these stages, but nobody knows all the time that you put in, grinding away, as we all did. Tell us about the time, all the years you put in, and the journey to get to that stage at the pro level.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, I think a lot of bodybuilders kind of became bodybuilders because we were possibly, lacking confidence or kind of punk teenagers. And that was the case for me. I mean, I was a punk teenager, got in a lot of trouble because I didn't have confidence. Ran with the cool kids or the wrong crowd to try to get noticed. And it wasn't until I found weight training that I actually felt a sense accomplishment that I never had before. It was something I can finally do for myself, by myself, and be proud. So every day I came to work in the gym because I wanted to improve on something. I found something that I actually fell in love with. So for the first time, I felt like I had something and I didn't care what anybody else thought about me because I finally felt good about myself. And that was what weight training did for me. So, I started back there. And I mean, honestly, I was a punk teenager. I got in a lot of fights, got in a lot of trouble. 18 no longer.
You're like, brother, you're like one of the nicest pros of everybody that I've ever fucking known. Ak, what do you think? Is he like one of the nicest fucking guys ever, especially like in the bodybuilding world?
Yeah, he's definitely a nice guy, man. I've had the honor to compete with Josh a few times, so
I know
he's always just a stand-up guy, very professional. So nothing.
I can't.
But good stuff to say about you,
But
Josh.
can you imagine him hitting somebody out of anger? That's so out of character of the Josh we know today.
Well, I mean, I think that's what happens, when you're lost. You're lost, and you just. I mean, I was angry at the time. I didn't have anything. I had a little bit of a rough childhood. To be honest, I came from. I came from North Highlands, and back then I was the minority as a white kid there. So I had to. Do this. It's like going to jail for the first time. I mean, if you don't stand up for yourself, you don't show. Don't fuck with me.
He's not lying because he's as far as a white guy, he's always guest host to hip hop music. Or even pose on stage hip hop music. So he's telling the truth.
I still came up. Those are my roots. But again, that's why I had to be tough. Yeah. I had to make sure that not to fuck with me. And so even though I was a skinny white kid, I was tough, and I had to kind of have that almost that persona And then I found weight training, and it immediately like felt good about where it was going, and building my physique was something that it meant a lot. I mean, I felt proud, and so again, like, that's where I got to where I didn't care what anybody else thought about me at that point. And I knew, not to mention, for one, I was angry. I knew how to fight. Now I got bigger, so now you really don't fuck with me.
I can't remember. I can't remember what show it was, but you were about to pose on stage, do your routine on stage, and all of a sudden the Biggie just came out, Biggie Smalls, and I'm like, and I looked and I was just like, oh shit, Josh posing to Biggie Smalls.
I think it was New York.
Maybe
I think it was the New York
it was
Pro 2018.
John and Nick, it was so unorthodox because you weren't expecting him to come out to Biggie Smalls, and he just broke out the Biggie, and everybody just turned around like, I'm like, okay.
Hey, it's New York, right?
I mean, he wasn't expecting that.
Hey, you come out to New York, you got to do that.
Yeah, true.
So I mean that's how it went. But I mean that's how I grew up. I mean always again you got to appreciate where you grew up and where you come from. I mean otherwise you're just kind of lost. I mean you have to make sure that you're always true to yourself, and no matter what. And that's kind of what the weight training did as far as my confidence. I'm just like, it's true to myself. I mean, if you don't like me for who I am, then I don't fucking care. I mean, I'm not going to change. And that's why, I try to be, a good guy, friendly, always welcoming, because, I mean, there's nothing else you can do. So, I mean, if you don't like me for me, then, nothing I can do about that.
Josh, as you talk about kind of the rough upbringing and kind of being in a rough, I guess you just kind of a rough culture, rough environment, rough, whatever you want. Did this parlay into because I mean, you have such a serious commitment, like over the top commitment to being a father and a husband and family, which I've always really admired about you. You think this has something to do with it?
The biggest change. And no, I don't. The biggest thing I can attribute that to is 100% my wife.
Really?
Yeah, and this is how it went down because I went to juvenile hall a lot, and
this just blows me away. I would have never guessed this from you.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you want to know the story, right? You asked. So,
oh God, I love it. This is beautiful, brher. This is entertaining shit.
I mean, again, at 18, I got in a fight, and I mean, I hurt the guy pretty bad, and so, I mean, again, no longer a slap on the wrist, at 18, I mean, I had, went to jail, had to do 8 out of 12 months. And,
no shit.
And that's when I realized, I mean, like, this wasn't me, this wasn't me. And, but like, I didn't care about it. It didn't bother me, to do the time. And, it didn't really matter. I got out. And when I got out, it was like the next day is when I joined Gold's Gym, when Gold's was really Gold's. Mm-hmm. It was my local Gold's, but still everybody had gym etiquette. That's where the bodybuilders really were. That's when gyms were really gyms. Yeah. And that's when I saw, I mean, like, again, I saw guys like, fuck, I want to be like that. And when I see something I want, of course, I mean, I give my all, 100%.
Where were you at this time, brother? What part of the country?
Citrus Heights, Sacramento area.
Oh, okay. So you've always been in Sacramento area.
Yeah, I've always been here, and that's when actually right before Mike Matarazzo ended up buying that Gold's.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah. And that's where I came up, and so I mean, there was a lot of bodybuilders there. And that's when I like this is like kind of how I got started. But like weight training is what really changed me. And then, as far as my family side, we'll talk more about that, but it was my wife. My wife has always been about family. Like, I mean, cares about, her family, where, I didn't feel like I had that connection myself, but she instilled family in me so much that, I mean, like once I had my kids, that became 100% the most important thing in my life, was to make sure that they knew that they were loved, and I would always be there for them. You
I got
know,
to tell you, bro, that's one of the things that, when we got to know each other years ago, that was one of the things that I've admired about you from the beginning is you had, I mean, just the way that you talk about your wife, your kids, your family. I mean, you can feel it. This is like it's so important to you. And I've always admired that about you a ton. It's been,
Well, it says a lot about a man too.
it's
Right?
really,
Men should
it's
love you.
fucking 100%. It's fucking refreshing because unfortunately, sometimes those values kind of get lost in this fucking busy life that we have going. And it's really, I mean, for me, I got to say, for me as a person, it was actually helpful for me to talk to you about how you felt because it just helped, for those of us that did get raised with family was important, but we got kind of altered by, distractions and blah, 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 to have somebody like you who was so steadfast and so sincere. It really kind of helped keep my values that I had been taught as a youngster in check. So I was always very appreciative of the energy that you kind of rubbed off on me, brother.
I appreciate that, John. And, I mean, that's the one thing, like when people do talk about me, right? When I'm gone and, if people remember me, when they talk about me, I want them to tell my kids that he was a good guy, not a good bodybuilder. I mean, he was a good guy. That's what really means.
Yeah.
That's what means the most important for me. Obviously, I was coached by John Meadows, and John Meadows, I mean, his legacy is what holds true. And it's not his bodybuilding career. It's how he affected other people's lives. And
Yeah.
I mean, again, as a man, bodybuilding is what I did, but I want people to remember me for who I was, not what I did. And that's why I do try really hard to make sure and that, people think highly of me. Again, I mean, I'm me. And again, if you don't like me for me, then, there's nothing I can do about that, but I still try to be the best me I can.
Hold on. Let God interject right there. This is something I was actually kind of excited to talk about. So you, Nick, obviously we became friends in our strongman careers. Obviously you and I became friends as pro bodybuilders, but you two, for me, are like, Josh, you represent the same thing in bodybuilding that Nick did in strongman. You guys are both these like over the top, do the right thing. And fuck, you don't run across that many people that way. And it's, it's really fucking cool. I mean, being around Nick was always helpful in terms of just, because, we all have that little devilish side where we all want to cause trouble and do shit wrong and all that stuff. And, Nick's influence was really helpful, especially on the road. And, talking to you about your family was always real helpful too. So you two are really fucking similar in so many ways. And I'm blessed that I got to have a chance to have both of you guys put, some positive vibes on me.
Hey, that's all you can do. I mean, that's what's really important to me.
Yeah. Well, brother, you said you said a minute ago, and I kind of interrupted you. Forgive me. You said if people don't like me, fuck, I'd be hard pressed to find somebody that doesn't like you, at least in your current life. Maybe when you're whooping the shit out of people when you're younger, I can understand why they didn't like you. But as an adult and as a when we got to know each other, you're a pro bodybuilder, you got your gym, you got your family, dude, you're a fucking stand-up dude. If somebody said they didn't like you, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What's wrong? There's nothing wrong with him. What's wrong with you?
Well, I'm a big enough man to admit mistakes I've made as well, Yeah. And that's, I mean, you got to make amends. You make a mistake. We all make mistakes. Yeah. But, I mean, again, being able to admit that, admitting you're wrong and, doing what you can because you were wrong. Okay. I mean, if I wasn't in the wrong and hey, somebody didn't like me, so be it. But if I did something wrong, I will try to make amends. But again, that has to be something that I sincerely know that I was in the wrong to do.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm sincere to myself and that's all I can be. And I mean, I feel like I'm going to always be true to that. Because I want to be a positive role model for my kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Want people to, to look up to me for the right reasons now, as opposed to what I did when I was younger.
Well, so you're younger, you're whipping the shit out of people. You find the gym, You're starting to train at Gold's. We kind of left off there. We got sidetracked. So continue on with your bodybuilding journey.
So once I got to the point where, I mean, I trained for a long time, you know, kind of funny. You see all these guys, some are bodybuilders, but obviously it starts more in the men's physique division where people, you know, lift weights 4, 5, 6 months. And all of a sudden they feel like they're jacked and they want to, you know, they want to jump on a stage and it's like, okay, I want to compete. You know, like you got people that come to you, which I got people that come to me and, you know, they were like, you know, they come to you for your coaching and they're like, hey, I want to compete. It's like, have you even lifted fucking weights yet?
Oh,
you know?
Dude. I mean, dude, it's crazy. I mean, sure, you get people send you pictures and say, I want to compete. And I'm looking at them thinking, okay, first thing we ought to do is get rid of those fucking man tits. And then we can even have a conversation. I mean, it's like people are like fucking fat and think that competing is a possibility. People have no clue what it takes.
Dude, it's worse the other way. It's worse when they're 120 pounds, they've never lifted a weight, and they think they can diet down. It's like, you'll have nothing left. So that's kind of my point when I got back to, you know, I started lifting weights and like the day after I got out of jail on my 19th birthday. I had to do 8 out of 12 months right after I turned 18. And so at 19, I joined the gym. So I didn't compete until I was 27 years old. And at 19, I was hardcore. I mean, you know, I joined the gym. So, I mean, again, like I trained for 8 years before I decided to compete. And these kids nowadays think they're just ready to get on the stage anytime. And what got me started,
they're ready to go, huh?
Yeah, they're ready to go. Hey, I look great. It's like, yeah, but you're gonna have nothing left if you try to diet down.
Yeah.
You know, people don't understand the diet down process or obviously the conditioning that it takes even to win a regional show. You know, everyone sees it on Instagram. They think it's easy. And obviously, as we know, that shit ain't easy.
No.
You know, but what got me started after obviously training for many years at that Gold's Gym, for one of my big brothers was Gregoria Toyon. You know, Greg, IFBB pro. But what really got me started in 2005, Farmars Agazada. Okay, you might not know the name. Farmars finished second to Phil Heath at the 2005 USAs. Farmars should have beat Phil Heath at the 2005 USAs. But that was
what was his name again? What was his name?
Farmars Agazada.
Where was he from? Was he from the Bay Area?
He was from the Bay Area, but then he moved up to NorCal.
Yes. Okay. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he had a bitty waist, huge sweeps on the legs. Wasn't he? He was a Middle Eastern guy, correct?
100% correct. That's exactly him.
Yeah, so he actually came to the gym where I was training in Marin Golds. That's when it was Gold. Yeah. So I know, he was tough. I mean, he had really good shape.
Oh, great shape. The way better back than Phil Heath had. Tremendous quads. But I mean, that was right after Phil got signed, you know, as an amateur by Weeder, and you know what happens there, you know. So I mean that wrecked Phil, that wrecked Farmars. It kind of did, because I mean he knew he should have turned pro there, and he never even turned pro. But so the sight of that guy is who I wanted to look like. I mean, fuck, dude, in my wildest dreams, I realized that I didn't think back then. I was like, my waist is 10 inches wider than yours. My shoulders are 4 inches narrower than yours. And so there was no way I could look like him, but I wanted to, right? That's what I wanted. So I used to follow this guy around Gold's Gym like a puppy, trying to unrack his weights and, you know, basically anything I could to get in with this guy, because this is how I wanted to look. So he finally, I mean, he took me under my wing after I sucked up to him long enough. And so I became his training partner. But so he's the one that prepped me for my first building show, which was in 2006. The Sacramento Bodybuilding Championships, back when there was only bodybuilding if you were a male.
Yep.
The good times. But so he you know, I mean, so he decided that, you know, he would prep me. Well, you know, I mean, I was like 220 pounds, and you know, I look big in a t-shirt, but look sloppy in a tank top. That type of 220 pounds. And so, you know, like going through it. Well, I mean, we're talking about somebody that's a top national level competitor, and as a national level competitor, back then, 2 hours of cardio a day, weight training for an hour and a half a day. I mean, the shit that kids don't do nowadays.
Yeah.
So for my first show, regional show, he had me training like a national competitor. So I mean, I came in, no shit. He's like, I had 15 weeks. And he said, you have 27 years of baby fat. And baby
that so sounds like him. That so much sounds like him. Oh, Jesus.
So, I mean, to get rid of baby fat, your first show, everybody knows when your fat cells have never been fully depleted. It's hard to reach that level of conditioning. Well, not for me. I dropped 47 pounds. I went from 220 to 173. I won the novice and the open middleweight class back when bodybuilding was tough.
Yeah.
And people didn't know my name. They called me the shredded glute guy. That's it. That was my name. Shredded glute guy. Like, I mean, back then, dude, I don't even know if people had shredded glutes back then at that point, but I sure did. And that's kind of where, like, I realized I didn't know people cheated. All right. This is the funny thing, right? Now everybody, as Akeem knows, everybody schedules cheat meals into their prep now. Well, I didn't know that was such a thing. I was 100% of the time. That's why my mentality became that way when I did turn pro, because I was that way from day one, thinking when you prep, you eat
fucking prep.
You eat tuna and celery sticks. You eat Foster Farm sliced turkey breast and brown rice. I mean, like, this is what you do 100% of the time. So when I show up at the weigh-ins for that show, and back then you used to weigh classes, right? So it was like every middleweight had to weigh in classes. So now you're watching all your competitors weigh in, and now you're evaluating your competition. Well, I'm watching everybody weigh in, and I'm like, the fuck is wrong with these guys? Like, nobody was in the shape that I was in. So my confidence started building. First show, confidence started building. And then I didn't realize till afterwards that people cheated on their diets.
Oh.
I didn't know that was a thing.
So kids, listen to that.
I swear to God, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was possible, because, like, I'm getting ready to be my best. Why the fuck am I gonna have a cheat? Like, I didn't even have that mentality to begin with.
Yeah.
So when I come in that condition, I realized, hey, that's what it takes. And I won my first show doing that. So therefore,
so what year is that?
That was 2006.
Okay, so where do you go from there? 2006. When's the next time you compete?
So I was a plumber. I was a plumber for 10 years, and actually in 2006. So this is kind of my will, my strength, my mentality. I was prepping for 15 weeks for the show. 8 weeks into this prep, 7 weeks to go into the show. First time ever dieting, 0 carbs. I'm like brainless at work, and I'm a plumber. So I have a razor knife, and I'm shaving a piece of pipe, and this pipe, it slips off and severs the tendon on my left thumb.
Oh, no.
So 7 weeks to go to the show. I sever the tendon in my left thumb, wrap it around a t-shirt, drive to the hospital. Well, they couldn't do surgery right away because I had just eaten. So like I completely severed the tendon in my left thumb. So I don't know if you can see.
Oh, wow. That's
so
crazy.
I can't bend my thumb tip. So like I severed the tendon, and so 7 weeks of the show, doctor tells me, well, you're not going to lift weights for 6 weeks. I was like, well, I just bought all these tickets for my first bodybuilding competition. So I go home, I'm depressed. My wife was actually having a girls trip in Las Vegas. So I'm depressed. So I wake up the next day and, realize maybe I can't lift weights, but I can be the most conditioned possible. So I jump on the treadmill, do 2 hours of cardio a day, thinking I'm going to make up for something. And so, it was 7 weeks ago. So then like the next day, my wife ended up coming home, and this is kind of funny. I mean, this is kind of, I think the level, the mentality that I have of, willing to do anything it takes for what I want. I go to the airport, I pick her up. Obviously my hand is wrapped, but it's my left hand. So I'm hiding it. I get out, I grab her bags, I throw her bags in the back of the car. She doesn't even see my hand. So I'm driving home with my right hand, like hiding it from her completely because I didn't want to ruin her weekend.
Oh, God.
And
So
that
we
is
get-
you. See, that's the Josh right
Yeah.
there. Just so everybody knows. He's like depressed as hell because he fucked his thumb up and having a hard time with his computer, but he doesn't want to. His wife just got done having fun all weekend, but he doesn't want to wreck her homecoming by showing her the fact that he's hurt himself. That sums up Josh fucking perfectly right there. That's the good dude I'm talking about.
That's how it happened. And so she noticed on the way home, and hey, you know what happened. So anyway, for those next 6 weeks, I mean, I had surgery. I was in a cast. So, you know, I mean, I'm trying to do curls. I mean, I use wrist straps, but, you know, again, I mean, I you know, we as to get to this level, we all got to be a little bit of crazy. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
I mean, I'm doing everything I can, lifting weights with wrist straps and, you know, everything, but cardio was nonstop. Diet was 100%. So anyway, so I mean, yeah, that's what I did for those next 6 weeks. I busted ass on cardio. I lifted, you know, I had to lift kind of light weights. I was in the cast for most of that time. Unfortunately, and could have been
This
a
was
little
your
bit of my
second.
fault.
This was your second show. Is that correct?
No, still first show.
It's the first.
Oh, that's the first show. Jesus Christ. Okay, so you were shredded out of your mind, and you came in there with basically injured.
Yeah, that's basically, I mean, it, and you know, again, maybe it wasn't the smartest thing to do what I did because that tendon ended up rupturing in that cast. It ended up rupturing.
We can't always factor in what's the smartest thing to do with our choices in life.
Right. So, you know, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I ended up having a ruptured tendon. I did the show. And then,
well,
you know,
I mean,
I won.
sets the stage. That totally helps, you know, anybody understand. You know, you were always known for being in fucking gnarly shape. Well, now it's very easy to see you were in gnarly shape, and you were, you know, you weren't even firing on all cylinders. So that's show one. So talk to us in show two. I'm excited to see how this thing unfolds.
I got a question though.
Yeah.
How good did it feel when you got back there and those guys started doing weigh-ins and you're handicapped like that, and then you're watching it because you said you were getting confidence as each guy started going up on that scale, and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna. This is great.
Be nuts.
Well, yeah, I came in
absolutely amazing, especially messing up your thumb like that.
Well, like I said, I lost 47 pounds during the prep for that show, and I mean, I came in, I was 173 pounds, and so I came in as a middleweight at 5'9". I didn't have necessarily a lot of muscle, but I was absolutely shredded to the bone. And so again, like I said, when I'm weighing in, we're weighing in with all these middleweights. I see all these middleweights, and I mean, I just was like absolutely shredded, and so I mean, my confidence felt great. You know, I mean,
you must have felt awesome.
Yeah, it did, and you know, I mean, again, then winning obviously was like, okay, maybe I'm good at this, and that's what kind of got me started. I'll tell any listeners out there though. Make sure if you have a wife or you have a girlfriend and you're getting ready to do your show, don't ever say, well, I want to do it one time to take pictures, because I did that. And for years, she was like, when I started my second prep, which I'm about to get to, she was like, babe, you said you were only doing one show. I said, no, at least one show. And so, you know, I mean, again, hey, I win. I felt good. I'm like, hey, maybe I'm good at this. But anyway, so after that show, anyways, I had to have another surgery on the thumb. They were trying to repair the tendon. Again, not successful. So 2007, I didn't compete. That next year, I didn't compete. I had 2 other thumb surgeries. You know, neither was successful. So, you know, finally, I finally gave up, because the only way that in 2008, because of that, 6 weeks after that third thumb surgery, I ended up with blood poisoning. I have this 1/2-inch red line run up my arm to my lymph node.
No shit.
And you know,
that's dangerous, brother. That's serious danger.
I went to work that morning, and then was like, I couldn't lift my arm. And so finally they made me go to the doctor, and then it admitted me for 3 days. They had to cut out the staph infection. At that time, the tendon was too deteriorated. They would have had to rebuild the pulley system and take tissue from my wrist. And at that point, I was done with Kaiser's. Like, I'm not letting you try anymore. So, you know, I mean, therefore, you know, so be it, whatever. I mean, you know, I can't really use my thumb tip. Then it gets me out of doing dishes.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. There's
So
always
that's
a
a good
positive and a negative. You know?
Yeah,
There's
anytime
always-
if I try to wash a bowl, it like falls out of my hand. So like I'm like I can't do dishes.
I like that.
So 2007 I missed. 2008 again after that blood poisoning. You know, I mean, I want to sound extreme, but if I had let it gone, I mean, I could have died. It was literally like
100%. Oh,
It was
brother,
How
blood
much antibiotics
poisoning
did
will.
they pump into you?
Oh, dude, blood
Did
poisoning
they have
will
you
knock
on
your
a pump
lights
and
out.
stuff too?
when I got
they-
in there.
Yeah, when they
yeah,
gave the antibiotics to you, did they give you a pump and stuff to wear? As
Well, I was
or
in the
they-
hospital for 3 days to cut out the staff and do IV antibiotics.
Wow.
And so yeah, so I mean, you know, once was, you know, I mean, all said and done. I mean, luckily I got in there and I was fine. But I missed 2007 because of those surgeries, and then 2008 is when that happened. But then I decided 2008 is when I wanted to compete again, and it was the Contra Costa.
That
So
used
again,
to be a fucking. That was a huge show back in those days.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
same
was
thing.
big.
So, I mean, I prepped for that show just like I learned how to prep for the last show. Farmers was out of my life at that point. So I prepped myself for that show. And again, I mean, I came in, I won the novice and the novice overall that show. And then I finished third. I finished third in the light heavyweights. I was like 181 pounds. But again, I came in with that conditioning that I was known for. Again, I think I always had a fast metabolism. So getting in shape wasn't always the hardest, even though I suffered like everybody thought you had to. So, I won that show 2008. And then, a couple years passed. So I competed at that show at 181 pounds. And back then, I mean, there was no social media. There was hardly any internet to get any information. So I over dieted. Again, I was so hell bent on conditioning. I was flat as a pancake every show. I didn't know about fullness. But then between 2008 and 2010, the same exact Contra Costa show, 2 years apart, I went from 181 pounds to 217 pounds.
Oh,
So
my Lord.
I gained 36 pounds of stage weight between those 2 years. A lot of it was, again, 100%. I mean, obviously with the thumb surgeries, I didn't really train like I should have trained. But after 2008, everything I did was as what a pro bodybuilder would do. I ate like a pro bodybuilder. I trained like a pro bodybuilder. I mean, no cheat meals, like not even the off season. I didn't, again, there was no cheat meals. We didn't talk about cheat meals back then. It wasn't even a term, I don't think, So I did everything I had to do. So in those 2 years, I put on 36 pounds of stage weight in the 2010 Contra Costa. I won the Open and I won the Open overall.
That's amazing.
So again, I felt like I was meant for this sport based on my determination, my work ethic. That's why, people call me the blue collar bodybuilder, because it's just a hardworking guy. And that's kind of how it went. So, I mean, then, 2010, I tried nationals. I finished like 16th. Obviously. So, I mean, all these people that think that they finished top 2 at a regional show and they're going to be competitive at a national show.
No, it's a big step.
Oh, it's a huge step. That's what I thought going in. I won it overall, and now I still finished 16th. So again, didn't work that well. But year in, year out, I competed. I started working with George Farah because Gregory Atoyan became my big brother. I started training clients out of his places. So 2008, stock market or housing market crashed. I got laid off as a plumber. So I became a personal trainer because I was already a bodybuilder and I became good at it. And so, Greg had a couple max muscles. I started training clients out of his place. So he kind of took me under my wing at that time. And then he was like, he worked with George Farah. So he was like, I think you need George to take you to the next level. So the next year, 2011 USA's, I come in. Greg always told me, because again, I don't have that wispy waist. Greg told me, he's like, you need to be a super heavyweight. You're somebody's going to come in with a smaller waist than you, and you're going to lose. And that's what happened to me. Like the first time I did nationals, Aaron Clark came in and Aaron Clark was like 203 pounds in the 226-pound weight limit. And Aaron Clark won because of his shape. And I was 20 pounds heavier than him. So, like, you know, realized, okay, Greg, you're right. So 2011, I won the California State Championships as a heavyweight. But then I was like, you're right, Greg. So I had 6 weeks before the USAs. I came in for the first time. I came in as a super heavyweight. 2011 USAs, the year Steve Kuklo won. I came in and I got 5th in the USAs as a super heavyweight. And Sean Ray interviewed me as the dark horse because nobody knew who I was. And that's, again, like I brought conditioning, but this time I had fullness, the way that my shape needed to be. So because of my structure, I had to be big. I didn't have pretty shape, and I never did. That's why I was dry and grainy and all those other adjectives that people describe me as, because that's what I had to be competitive. You got Akeem coming in with his round muscle bellies and all these like beautiful insertions. But if he came in out of shape, I'm going to beat him. Only because of my conditioning. But if I came in out of shape, I'm going to get demolished by everybody up there because, for one, I set the standards high on my conditioning. For two, I don't have a pretty shape. So I had to be the dry, grainy, gnarly, nasty. That's the guy. So, 2011, I finally came on the scene and got noticed. 2013, 2014, we'll just fast forward ahead a little bit. Got 4th at both USAs. Another couple injuries, finally. So 2014, I had to compete at the USAs. I had a partially torn tricep tendon. Yep, which elbow? I'm backwards on the camera. This one. I don't know, somewhere over there. Anyways, had a partially torn tricep tendon. I had a bone spur in my shoulder that was tearing a hole in my labrum every time I moved my arm. So after 2014, I had to get surgery. First, I had the shoulder scoped, bone spur removed, scar tissue removed. And then March of 2015, I had to have the tricep tendon reattached. So they had to drill a hole in the bone, attach the tendon through a suture, obviously scrape the bone to get good bleeding so the scar tissue would hold it. So this is where I thought I was going to quit. 2015, because I competed in national scene 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. Dante Trudell, right? Dog crap training, DC training, True Nutrition. So I didn't know Dante Trudell knew who I was. But 2015 was the first year I did not compete on the national scene. And I got a Facebook message from Dante Trudell that said, "Hey, I didn't see you on the national scene this year. Dusty Hanshaw and I have always talked that we feel like you're one of the most underrated amateurs in the nation. I hope you didn't hang it up. You're so close." That message right there is what changed my bodybuilding career. I didn't know people knew who I was because, again, I was a blue collar worker, man. I competed, I did bodybuilding, but I wasn't known at all. I just loved bodybuilding. And so when I got that message, it made me realize, hey, I was so close. I got 40 USAs 2 years in a row. I don't want to stop what I started. I mean, I'm so close. And so that's it. This is where my story, this is where it became known. 2015, missing that year. When I finally was better, after I got that message from Dante, I knew John Meadows only from like the Arnold. He lived in Ohio. I was sponsored by All Max Nutrition. One time he came by the booth. I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit how I got introduced to John Meadows. 2012 North Americans. I ended up finished second. Okay, so God, I'm sorry I jump around, guys, but so
that's all
2011,
right.
After I finished 5th in the USAs in 2011 as a super heavyweight. Well, now I became thinking size was what I had to have to compete. So there was only one show ever. I did not miss my peak. I missed my peak in conditioning, and that was the 2012 USAs. After finishing 5th, I come back the next year, and I got to be bigger. So I actually
did that USAs 2012.
Yeah, so 2012, 2011, I finished 5th. 2012, I finished 10th.
So to give people perspective, where is your body weight at this time going through that? Because you first competed in the 170s, and now you're weighing. And
He's in the
competing
super
at
heavies. He's in the super heavies now.
Yeah,
He's
so
all super
I
heavies
ended
now.
up that 2012 with not my best conditioning. I was 236 pounds.
Okay,
That was the year that this guy from Texas won, right?
Now 2011 is when Steve Kukla won. 2012.
No, the guy from
2012
Texas.
was oh my god, tremendous quads. Now he had like a Jason Ha. Jason Ha won.
That was 2012. No, that wasn't 2012.
Okay, well, I was so far down the list, I don't even remember who won.
I remember 2012. That's the year Nick Trigili was. Max Charles was fourth. I was fifth. Nick Trigili was third. Dan Decker was second. And there's a guy from Texas. He used to train in the Arlington gym with Ronnie Coleman. He had crazy biceps. God, I can't remember. Steven something.
Stephen Frazier? Stephen Frazier.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
He won the super heavies, and Darryl Glenn won the heavyweight or light heavyweight.
I think Darryl Glenn was light
overall.
heavyweight.
And he won the overall that year.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that 2012. Because I remember, the reason I remember that show is I was really good as a super heavy. I probably could have won, but at the time I was working with Dave Palumbo, and he didn't want me to do super heavies. So he was trying everything to suck me down for heavyweights. And finally, we got to the show. I think I weighed in at like 228 or whatever. So I suffered so much to get onto super heavyweights, and I couldn't make the weight anyway. So last minute, we tried to fill back up to go to super heavies, and it didn't work that well, but I was still able to come in like top 5. So that's why I remember that show, because it was one of the worst shows I ever did.
Well, it was the only time I ever showed up out of shape was that show.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, I was working with George Farah at the time. So I was 236 weighed in at that show. Well, at that point was like, okay, I'm hell bent on conditioning again. I know my strength. So it was 6 or 8 weeks to North Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So I came in the North Americans at 217.
That was in 2012?
2012.
That's the year that Dallas McCarver won, right?
That was when Dallas won the overall.
Okay.
Yeah, because Dan Decker turned pro as a master.
Uh-huh.
And so he did not compete in the Open.
Okay.
And otherwise, Dallas McCarver probably would not have beat Dan Decker.
But yeah, he wouldn't have beat him. No, he wouldn't have beat him. Dan Decker was really good that year.
Dan Decker would have won both classes for sure.
Yeah, he would have.
But he dropped out of the Open.
Nick, at the North Americans, you could compete as a Masters and also in the Open. But if you win your class in Masters and you turn pro, then you don't have to go to the Open and do the same thing again.
Yeah, so he gave Dallas the card. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And Dallas, God rest his soul, this was pretty much his first time doing a national level show, and he just struck gold.
Yeah.
He didn't have to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So
I still got to get big enough to get there.
Yeah, he didn't have to do a lot of competing.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, yeah, obviously we know the story after. I mean, he was definitely blessed with great shape and size. Where again, I mean, I had to suffer down. I came in at the best condition I've ever been. Obviously, I lost 19 pounds between the USA's and North Americans. And I finished second to a guy named Joe Romine that never did anything. Never did anything. So again, I mean, obviously, I mean, I can talk about this. We know there's definitely a lot of politics in the way the judges work. So, that next morning after I got second, George Farah comes up to me and said, "Hey, that guy that beat you's having breakfast with 3 of the judges over there." Yeah. And so again, this is how I met John Meadows. I didn't know who John Meadows was at the time, even though, I mean, he was very known in the scene, but I was just a worker that competed in bodybuilding. So I didn't really pay attention to anything, never was online. But when I got home after that show, I got a message from John Meadows and said, "Hey, I have not seen anybody in your condition in such a long time. I feel like you should have won. Like very complimentary to me.
Mhm.
And again, I mean, I respond back, thank you very much. I mean, I really appreciate it. I didn't know who John was. But I mean, I'm going to respond. This is obviously very nice. So then like that during that next year, I knew who John was. And that was 2014. But then once I got that message from Dante Trudell, the one person that I really wanted to reach out to and work with was John Meadows. So that's how it happened. 2015, after getting the message from Dante and realizing, hey, I'm going to continue this, I contacted John Meadows, and he said, well, if you're going to work with me, I want your diet and your training. I said, of course, John, I'm going to do anything for you. So 2015, after 30 years, John Meadows turned pro at NPC Universe, back then Team Universe, in the 35 and the 40 and over. John Anderson knows this.
Yeah.
It's interesting that John Meadows say he hasn't seen anybody with the conditioning, because that's what he was known for as an amateur.
Exactly.
He was gnarly, man.
That's a very good compliment.
That's how crazy that I was in 2012. And so 2015, that's where John finally turned pro. John, you were 2014, right?
Yeah.
Where did you turn pro, John? The 2014 NPC Universe.
Pittsburgh.
You turned
I
pro.
can't remember. It was the.
Was it Masters Nationals? I thought it was the NPC Universe.
I think it was Masters. I can't fucking remember, to be honest. Christ, it was my second goddamn show. All I knew is I was just told where to show up.
I remember MHP guy. I remember that.
I swear to God. I mean, that's what John. Meadows and I actually started off on the wrong foot, which I felt terrible about, because he and I were hanging out all fucking day. I was my second fucking show ever.
I know.
And my coach and I were having a fucking huge beef. I mean, I was literally by myself. I mean, this fucking guy, we're good now, but at that day, Jesus Christ, so we'll get into the show's about you, not me. But anyway, Meadows, and I don't have a fucking clue how it works. And so I went up and I win the fucking 35s, because Meadows and I are both in the 40s and 35s. Yep. And keep in mind, think about this. You're talking, I dieted hard too. I didn't know any better. It was my second fucking show. I'm like out of my mind, don't know what's going on. Meadows was actually really cool. He helped me kind of understand, hey, look, it's okay. We're going over here now. I was just kind of following him around like a puppy. Anyway, and so basically I end up winning the 35s, not quite understanding. I mean, I remember looking back, he told me what was going on, but I was like, and my coach was like, this, you do that. So I won the 35, so I already have my pro card.
I know.
And then went up again at the 40s, won again, which didn't allow John to get his.
Oh. Damn, John.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind, brother. I mean,
I get it.
We were at years later. I think it was probably a year or two later. We saw each other backstage, and I was apologetic. I was like, "Look, dude, He was like, "Look, this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Look, I'm not trying to sit here and argue with you. I'm saying I'm sorry. Number one, number two is my second show. I didn't really fucking know what was going on. I walk off stage." They start fucking sticking microphones in my mouth. My coach was fiery hot because he prepped me for free with the idea that he kind of had an idea what was going to happen. He goes, "You just need to talk about me in the interviews." Didn't fucking mention his name once. So, I mean, it just tells you the state of mind I was in. I mean, I was like fucking out to lunch, man. And keep in mind, you're up there and you're going, and it's all fucking new to me, and he's also too, he's got me on his fucking side. He coached me to be off to the side, holding that fucking front relaxed the whole goddamn time. I was fucking whipped, anyway, so long and short of it, I actually felt quite bad, but I was really, really happy that John and I worked our shit out, because he was a fucking great guy, man. Such a good dude. And when we got a chance to, after we made amends, we'd see each other a few shows after that. And he was such a wholehearted guy. He was one of those dudes who let everything go. And we actually enjoyed each other's company. And especially after him being gone, man, I'm so thankful that whole thing got straightened out. But yeah, looking back, that was that definitely could have. I could have very easily, if I understood what was going on, I could have just said, "Yeah, dude, go get it." And I already had my pro card. Fuck, I would have gone out to dinner for Christ's sake, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean,
No,
I knew the story. I knew the situation. John was like a brother to me. The hardest loss I've ever had in my life was John Meadows.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I might have been 2014 Master Nationals, but I thought it was the 2014 NPC Universe that you won.
Yeah, I know. Was it in Pittsburgh? I know for sure. I remember getting off the fucking plane in Pittsburgh. I can guarantee you that.
Well, then that was Masters Nationals.
Yeah. 'Cause I remember I need some water. And you go to a fucking 7-Eleven in Pittsburgh and all they have is fucking regular soda and Sunny D. I'm like, can a fucking guy get a fucking bottle of water in this state? Jesus Christ. I'd drive like 15 fucking stores to find bottles of water. I was like, how do you people survive over here?
I don't know. But so
cheesesteaks.
So you made John compete another year as an amateur. So 2015 was the NPC Universe, and that's where John finally turned pro after 30 years. So when I talked to John, when I decided to start working with John 2015, first thing he said to me was, "Let's go win NPC Universe." And I finished top four. I finished fourth at Nationals 2 years in a row, or at NPC the USA's 2 years in a row. So we're prepping 2016, the year after John won the NPC Universe. I'm getting ready to show, and at that point, because of the message from Dante Trudell, I was going to do every national show possible that year to get my pro card, because I thought that was it. I'm going to turn pro. That was my goal, my bucket list, and I was going to be done. So I was going to do any show possible. So I started at the first show. First show I started was the NPC Universe. John was the best coach for me because he had the exact same body type as me. He knew exactly what it took to get me conditioned, stay full. So like John knew exactly what it needed. So I came into NPC Universe. I won. I was 37 years old. I won the 35 and over, and the overall. So I turned pro the year after he turned pro, which meant so much to both of us. And the way that I came in, I would have won any national show that whole year, USA's, Nationals, it didn't matter. I would have won any show that year the way that I looked because of John's guidance. And to this day, I'm the only person that's ever turned pro in a Masters category that has made the Open Olympia.
Wow.
No shit. That's killer, brother.
Yeah, everybody, I did my pro debut like 6 weeks after I turned pro. Because,
that's where we met.
Told,
that's where we met at Sacramento. The
2016 Golden State.
Yeah.
And I come in and I placed fifth. Talking to Justin Compton, which won that show that year. And I knew Justin because, again, through the amateur ranks. But, Justin told me backstage, he was like, everybody wrote you off because you turned pro as a master. He's all, but I know, I've seen your conditioning. Like, I mean, he was there at 2012 North Americans. So anyways, that's just, so this, I jump in my first pro show. I mean, I was ready to be a pro when I turned pro at the NPC Universe. So I was immediately going to go into pro show. I didn't want to waste any time. I'm 37 years old. I'm pretty much done. I finished fifth in that show. And, again, like known for conditioning. That was my hometown. It was absolutely amazing for me to make my pro debut there. So, I compete on, well, finally I needed a break. 2017, I came in, I think my second pro show was the Ferrigno Legacy.
Yeah, that's right. That's the set. That was because we were at that show together too.
Yeah, we followed each other for quite a few years.
Yeah.
But that, so going into that show again, I was still virtually unknown. I turned pro as a master. Nobody paid attention to anybody that didn't win USA's or nationals. So again, nobody really knew who I was. But we get there, and this was the show that made me. Super appreciative. Show was awesome. I actually loved that show. But I come up there, and this was probably one of the biggest bodybuilding shows. I had to have 30 guys. I mean, it was a huge pro show. But when I'm up there after doing like my individual, and I'm off to the side, and if you remember, Brandon Curry, I beat Brandon Curry on my pro debut.
Yeah,
Brandon
that's right.
Something like
the next year, Brandon was like fucking that's when he had really got his shit together, and next year he was a whole different creature, and he just kept going.
Yeah.
Remember that, Josh?
So yeah, I beat Curry my pro debut. So when we go into the 2017 Legacy, he sees me and he was like, "Man, I've been watching this year. You've really come a long ways." Like compliments like that to me, like mean the world, because I was nobody. So for somebody to go out of their way to compliment somebody that they don't have to or they don't know, that character is, again, that's why I always want to be the way I am, because I want to be remembered for those moments. Like I won't forget that, and that was 6 years ago. So anyways, coming into that show, well, now, I mean, you got obviously hitters. You got Cedric, again, rest his soul, Cedric McMillan. Brandon Curry. That's why Jose Raymond came up from the 212. So I mean, all these big names.
Yep.
So I'm now in the top 3. I'm being compared with Cedric McMillan and Brandon Curry. And I finished 3rd to those guys. Some people thought I should have been higher than that, but I came in.
I remember on the MD forums, muscle development forums, a lot of people were saying you should have been higher.
Yeah. So I mean, again,
as you were fucking conditioned, brother. You were gnarly.
It was my best pack. I mean, I think I improved after that, but it was at that time best condition, best fullness, the best I could possibly be. And being compared with a couple of the biggest names in the sport is where I got known. But luckily for me, that was like a tier 2 show. So I earned pretty good points when the Olympia had that point system. So now I started 2017. Now I'm ahead. I get points going into the 2018 year. So 2018, again, came in Vancouver. I got 3rd, absolutely shredded out of my mind. That was my best condition ever. I can't remember. I mean, I placed top 5 in almost every show I competed in after I turned pro, but those points is what got me into the 2018 Olympia. Again, just to make that obviously is a highlight. I mean, sure, I wanted to be better, but I was super proud that at one point in my career, I was one of the top 19 bodybuilders in the world. Something I'll never forget. So I mean, I made that no matter what. I didn't win a show, even though I probably should have won a couple shows, including the California State Championships in 2018.
Listen, a lot of people hang up their jacket and they never got to fit an Olympia jacket. They never got that honors to get an Olympia jacket with your name on the back. So you got that to be proud of. A lot of bodybuilders have never made it that far to get to an Olympia stage.
And a lot of really fucking good guys never made it too. I mean, 100%.
Yeah. So I mean, again, that's the highlight. And then 2019, finished 3rd at the Toronto Pro behind
Oh
man, how did I lose his name? John De La Rosa. John De La Rosa. Yeah, De La Rosa won. Ian got 2nd. I got 3rd. Again, I was running top 3 in a lot of those shows, top 5 for sure. 2019, I didn't make the Olympia. I obviously made the Olympia. So the next biggest show we want to do is Arnold Sports Festival. So I submitted an application for 2020 Arnold Sports Festival and Arnold Australia. I got an invitation to the Arnold Australia 2020. Prepped, my best prep ever. John said this is the best I've ever been. COVID, boom, right?
Yeah.
Now
I was actually scheduled to do that show too. Actually, well, I was. It wasn't because they told me I had to pay for half of the flight, half of the destination
airfare
fee. So you
airfare?
to pay from airfare. Yeah. So they would take me from California to Australia, but I had to pay from New Jersey to California. And I said,
Well,
"Now."
see, you were a higher tier bodybuilder than me because I had to pay for my whole fucking flight.
Wow.
I got lodging. I got lodging. That's all I got.
So you see that, John? I'm complaining about paying from California from New Jersey to
So
California, and Josh had to pay his whole flight. Oh man!
Whole flight.
So I just learned something about bodybuilding I didn't realize.
Oh yeah,
It's a lot like that in strongman too.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't do the
A lot of the guys
show.
gotta pay
I
that
pulled out
whole
last minute.
Well, it's it's like that. It's the problem is that if guys are going to pay for their own fucking tickets, the promoters are going to take advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the same thing in fucking wrestling. It was unbelievable. The fucking guys that would pay for a fucking plane ticket to Japan. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you do that once, you're fucking done. You're going to do that a whole bunch of times, you know?
I had no clue. I mean, obviously, I mean, I was honored, but after that whole prep, 2 days before I was supposed to leave, that show canceled.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I'm over 40 years old at this point. I knew I didn't have much longer. So, I mean, I was going to compete again that year. After making the Olympia once, it's like, okay, I can do it again. So that got canceled. Arnold Brazil got canceled. St. Louis got canceled. So like 2020, obviously, I mean, as we know, was
it changed the landscape for a lot of shit, you know?
Yeah. And so the pretty much the last show, you know, I did Chicago with Akeem, and we talked there. I did not have a good placing. Didn't understand it, at that point. But so then I was pretty much, I felt like I was done. I realized, I mean, my priorities completely became, I didn't want to miss any more time with my family.
I remember you telling me that, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much the reason. I was like, okay, I think this is it for me. Yeah. And so I went in I was already ready. So the Legion Sports Festival was November in Reno, which is a 2-hour drive from my house. So November of 2020, this is my last show. Well, getting ready for the Open, as I was an open bodybuilder. My family was going to go. People were going to go see me, my last show. And again, that's why everything got so screwed up that year. Well, Chris Menez lost his main Chris Menez lost his main sponsor. So he dropped open bodybuilding at almost the last minute. So the only thing that was left was Masters bodybuilding. And I was doing it no matter what. This is my last show. So, hey, I finally won a pro show. It was a Masters pro show, but I finally won a pro show.
It's still a win, man.
And that's how I went out.
Exactly. You went out on top.
Brother, think about this though. I mean, for all those listeners, this is a guy who, as you put it, you were just a plumber. You were just a hardworking guy that applied that hard work ethic to bodybuilding. All you did was work and bodybuild, and you put yourself from that position and to being one of the best bodybuilders in the world, brother. I mean, granted, I know that, looking back, things with COVID kind of took some wind out of the sails, but brother, that's a hell of a journey. It's one hell of a story. And just think of how few people in this world could tell a story even close to that.
Yeah, well, that's I mean, that's it. I mean, I was determined, and that's for sure. And then my priorities changed. I got to the point where I probably made it as far as I could. And at that point, spending more money to get ready for competitions, just wasn't. It didn't make the sense to me anymore. And that was pretty much that's what ended me. Now, I mean, hey, like most of us become. I mean, I coach. I coach athletes. I coach lifestyle clients. But the number one thing I'm most proud of is I coach my son's football team.
Oh, there we go.
So I became head coach of the junior program. And before John passed, that's all we talked about. We didn't talk about bodybuilding. We talked about coaching youth football. So that's my biggest passion now. I spent so much time with John. talking about youth football, offensive formations, and that's what my life has become.
Well, brother, I gotta say again, it's a hell of a great story and inspirational story. You know, the funny thing is, I got a whole fucking page of shit that I had written down and that I was going to talk to you about. And other than my introduction, the first fucking question was the only thing that I asked you the first question, and you rambled with that for an hour and 4 minutes. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to make it very clear, as long as you agree, we're going to do Josh Wade part 2, because I've got there's no way we're going to get through all the rest of this shit with the time that we'd be here till tomorrow morning. But I'll tell you, brother, I do have a couple questions I want to ask you before we go. But are you good with doing a part 2? Because this was an amazing episode, and we didn't even get a chance to talk about anything other than your journey.
Well, sorry, I'm a little long-winded, John. I guess you asked me, I told a story.
And listen, nobody's complaining. That was a fucking amazing story. That was a fucking amazing. It's an amazing episode. I'm just saying that, Christ, we got so much more to talk about. We'll just shift gears when you come back next time, and we'll do part 2. So we'll get that scheduled, and we'll literally make this a straight up from the beginning. This is not have you come back in a couple of years. This is, okay, here's Josh part 2. We're just going to pick up on this fucking piece of paper. I'm not going to redo my notes.
Well, I'll try to be brief. If you need to cut me off,
no, brother.
Okay?
This has been fucking great. I'm not damning you. I'm just saying that this was amazing fucking shows. One question.
You know, it's good when you look up and an hour went by and you even notice it.
I was like, where are we with the time? I'm like, oh well, fuck. Well, I guess we're gonna just end it at the first question, because I think when I recognized we're at about 45 minutes, you were at about 2015.
Sorry.
So I want to hear other stories, like about when you took up roller skating.
Yeah, there's so many other things that we can talk about.
That was impressive.
We've got to talk about Josh's gym. We got to talk about, obviously, we didn't even talk in it. We just briefly talked about his commitment to his family values. We got so much other shit to talk about.
Write down the roller skating, because that didn't go so well. I think I still
I'm writing that down right now. I'm writing that down right now. I love it. Because we didn't get a chance to ask you about your opinion on any of the new shit that's going on in the sport. The new guys coming in. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about that. So.
Oh shit! Well, I got my opinions.
I love it. That's why we're going to set up. Well, I'll be texting you tomorrow so we can set up number 2. So the part number 2, I should say. Like I said, this is not. We're doing this in a couple of years. This is okay, everybody. We're going to fucking do the second one. We're going to have to run these things part 1, part 2 right away. But I do have to ask you, with this amazing fucking timeline and story you laid out, and this is a question we ask a lot of guests. If you had the ability, remember the movie Back to the Future? You get in that fucking DeLorean, the dashboard, you can type in the time, and it's one of my favorite fucking movies of all time. Anyway, so you can get on a DeLorean, and you can program to go back in time to do whatever you want to do. You can go back in time, but you can only go back, talk to yourself, and give yourself one piece of advice. So how far back in time do you go to find yourself? What are you doing at the time? And what does the current version of you tell the younger version of you?
Well, I mean, obviously, I can't have any regrets, because what I did is what made me who I am, and what made me want to become a better person. So write down book too, because I wrote a book.
I like it.
Right on.
This is a first. I'm actually getting notes for part 2 during part 1 from the actual
the book is available on Amazon. It's called Becoming a Stronger Person by Josh Wade.
Let's go.
So we'll talk about that. But so just quickly, to go back in time, and again, I wouldn't change anything that happened to me. I mean, I found my wife, I found my family. I mean, I'm as happy as I could be. The one thing that I wish I would have done, I'm still not good at this. Obviously, nobody knew I had a book. I am horrible at marketing. Horrible. I mean, I make money from working hard, not always necessarily working smart. Going back to where I finally became relevant, I should have found a way to capitalize that on that money through bodybuilding, through whatever it was. Just like Akeem said, I paying for my own airfare because I was blessed to go. I never took advantage of any situation to profit off of.
And brother, real quick, I gotta interrupt you. It's not too late, brother. I'm telling you, it's you found a high level. Brother, we'll talk. There's so many ways that you can leverage because what you did is it doesn't vanish like a fart. What you did is what you did.
John,
and you have what?
Dude, your farts never vanish.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Very true.
Oh my God! From posing videos to farts to I've been around you backstage. Backstage, John Anderson is the worst smelling person I've ever been around.
I think Nick is probably.
Now throw in sweaty strongman equipment too.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to.
Oh yeah. And then I guarantee if we were somehow to push a button and get on one of those Japanese tour buses, you'd have all them saying the same thing. I laid my shit down wherever I go. That's just
there ain't no shame in your game. That's true to you.
This is what it is. You know, I mean, I've been that way since a little fucker. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'm good to go, but that's the one thing.
But on that level, brother, I mean, literally, brother, let's talk because I mean, Nick can tell you, I helped him just a little bit of time and helped him monetize really well because what you've done is worth something, brother. It is.
Oh,
well, I'm that's what I'm not good at. I'm good at working
you'll
hard.
have a good conversation with John. You really will.
I mean, for sure, brother.
He has it inside and out.
All right, well, I can use the help.
The way you work with your work ethic, when you listen to John and how he does things, you will be independently wealthy.
Well, I'm big enough to ask for help.
Well, it's 100%, brother. You know, we've shared a lot together. I'd be honored to help you, brother. So that being said, you're going back and you basically just would have said you'd been better at marketing or leveraging your opportunities with what you did is really what you would have done. Well, guess what, brother? We're going to set that fucking DeLorean to the future, and we're going to have to the conversation we're going to have, and you're going to do everything you wished you did in the past. How's that sound? Let's go.
Baby. Deal. I'm there.
So that being said, we're basically going to say to everybody, we got part 2 coming. So up to this point, what a fucking amazing story that Josh Wade has just laid on us. Now we're talking about a dude who was just, as he said, just a plumber all the way up to one of the best bodybuilders on the fucking planet. Why? Because he fucking worked his ass off. And it gives me goose pimples just to say it. So that being said, brother, thank you for coming. We're going to be in touch tomorrow so we can set up another time for part 2. So everyone, get ready for part 2. But more importantly, I guarantee you listening to Josh Wade's story has inspired you to go do something productive to help you become the best version of you, because this show, that's what we're all about. We're about trying to help inspire you become the best version of who you can be. So everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching Legends of Iron. We will see you next time.
Legends of Iron is brought to you by Muscle Mix.
Damn, man. Can't even enjoy my workout, man. Yo, bro, what's wrong with you, man? What's wrong with you, bro? What's on your hold on, man? No, you need beef, bro. You need beef, man.
Why?
Go, what do you mean, why?
What's wrong with
Come on, yo, you're not wearing protein gonna have you going to the bathroom, man. You're gonna mess up your stomach, man. This is lacto free, man. Come on, champ. Beef build muscle, bro. Drink it out, man. You're gonna mess up yourself, man.
I'm gonna try this. I'm trusting you.
Take that, man.
Thank you.
Messing up my workout. Beef it up with carnivore, beef protein, isolate, 23 grams of protein, 0 fat, 0 sugar, 0 lactose. What you waiting for? Beef it up.